This is a story about a freak tandem bike accident in Japan. When I was 19, my brother was an Air Force pilot, and he was stationed at Yokota Air Force Base, which is a small Japanese suburb right outside of Tokyo. I'd never been to Tokyo before, and so when he invited me to stay with him, I took the offer. I had lived my entire life being another. I grew up in New Jersey and was too Asian for everybody. And then I would go to Southern California and visit my family, and I was too white. I lived my life trying to navigate those two worlds, and I think I did a pretty good job about it. I had mastered communicating with all types of people, and I felt pretty confident in that ability. And then I went to Japan, and I never felt so lost. It was a country of people who looked kind of like me, but were completely different. And I'm Chinese, so the culture was even so different. If you've never been to Japan before, it looks exactly like the movies. The city looks exactly like a video game, and the quiet little suburbs look exactly like some idyllic little town. It's foggy, and there's no trash on the ground, and everyone is very polite and very quiet and very rigid. They have a properness to them that is ingrained at a young age. They follow the rules. You're expected to be a type of way, and everybody follows that rule. When I went to Japan, I thought I could handle it, and I learned I could not. I felt so loud. I felt so messy. They don't give you napkins when you order food there, and I'm somebody who uses at least 2 handfuls every single time I eat. I didn't speak a lick of Japanese. I didn't even know what anyone was saying. I didn't understand the little symbols on the wall, and I thought I was a very educated kind of person. I thought I could navigate these situations, and I felt so small. I felt like everything I did was wrong. I felt like I was being rude to people, and I didn't even know how or why, but I was breaking some kind of rule everybody knew how to behave, and I just didn't have that book. One particular day, we decided to go to a botanical garden, me, my sister-in-law, and some of her kids. 2 of her daughters decided to get a tandem bike, and everyone else got little bicycles. That day, we also decided to bring my brother's very small, white toy Maltese. She was as big as 2 hands. Her name was Mochi, and she was the type of dog, who had the biggest personality. She was this small, as big as 2 hands, and yet you thought she was a lion, and she acted that way. One year, as a gag, they got her a giant bone as big as herself, and they thought it would be too intimidating for her. She took that bone and little by little took it apart until it was all gone. She had the strength that gave you courage, and you really just loved her immediately and respected her. So we brought her along to this botanical garden. We put her in the basket, and we went along. It was a beautiful day, and I'd never seen these plants before. It was a great day. And I'll never forget the little tiny yelp and the sound of one of the girls saying, "Mochi's bleeding." We pedaled back, and there was this tiny dog on the road, its tongue a little out, its eyes wide open, and its neck had been snapped. My sister-in-law gathered her kids, and I stayed with the dog. The thing about it is that we were on an active bicycle road, so I had to stop the bicycle riders, communicate to them in some kind of nonverbal way. "Please stop riding your bicycle. There is a small dog on the ground. I do not want you to run over. I don't know what I'm doing. My sister-in-law is somewhere, and hopefully she's coming back. Please get help." Did not know how to communicate this. I don't speak Japanese. And unfortunately, we were in a rural area, and not a lot of people spoke English. bicycle rider after bicycle rider. I just had to stop. And every single one of them, I didn't want to be rude. I didn't want to be too loud, but I had to stop and communicate this urgency. There's a small dog behind me. Please don't run her over. I also need help, but I don't know how to get it. I don't know if somebody's going to come back. I don't know. Please help me. They all looked at me with sympathy. Some people looked concerned. Some people looked at the dog like, Finally, somebody came, and the police came, and they sat around, and they all spoke Japanese, and I was there trying to communicate to them, and I don't know if they ever really understood, but I was inconsolably sobbing at this point. My tiny little perfect Mochi was on the ground and dead, and I knew how much she meant to my brother, and I knew how much this would break him. I never felt so lost in my life. And then I look over, and one of the women had grabbed my hand, and she was holding it. And if you know anything about the Japanese culture, you should know that they're not a very physical culture. You wouldn't even hug a friend if you saw them. Holding somebody's hand in public is unheard of. And in that moment, that tiny little act of humanity, I understood how universal caring for somebody could be, that even though we didn't speak the same language, even though I was this loud American who just was so wrong in all kinds of ways, she understood I needed someone, and I was alone. And it was uncomfortable for her, but she knew that I needed that. And that moment just gave me a lot of faith in humanity and gave me a lot of hope that we're all going to be okay. Thank you.